If you've ever cracked open an anatomy and physiology textbook, you know exactly how overwhelming it can get, right? I mean, you're just immediately hit with this absolute mountain of terminology, countless individual organs, and literally 11 completely distinct organ systems that you're somehow supposed to just memorize. It feels chaotic. But what if I told you there's a much better way to learn this? Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to use the ultimate study hack. Instead of staring at 11 random systems, we're going to group them by their overarching functions. We're creating a categorical master plan that takes the human body's wildly complex machinery and makes it incredibly easy to understand.
Okay, so let's just lay out the blueprint really quick. We'll be breaking everything down into 5 functional categories: support and movement, integration and coordination, transport, absorption and excretion, and finally, reproduction.
Starting things off with Phase 1, support and movement, the framework of the human body.
Think about this category kind of like the architectural foundation of a house. Before you can even think about putting in the plumbing or the electrical wiring, well, you need a physical exterior and a sturdy mechanical framework, right? To build that physical framework for our bodies, we rely on 3 interconnected organ systems. First, the integumentary system, which is primarily just your skin. Then the skeletal system, your bones and joints. And the muscular system, specifically those skeletal muscles. By chunking these particular systems into one functional group, we instantly lower the cognitive load. Together, they set the physical stage. They protect our insides and allow us to physically navigate the world around us.
Let's look a little closer at the integumentary system. There is a remarkably handy mnemonic to help you remember the skin's 4 primary functions, and it's PTSD. First up, P stands for protection. That's keeping out harmful bacteria, viruses, and UV radiation. Next is T for temperature regulation. Your skin literally cools you down by evaporating sweat and shifting your blood flow. Then we have S for sensation, which is all thanks to millions of tiny sensory nerve endings embedded right there in the tissue. And finally, D for vitamin D synthesis, a totally essential process that gets triggered directly by sunlight hitting your skin.
Now, moving right beneath the skin, we find this incredibly dynamic duo, the skeletal and muscular systems. It's such a brilliant partnership. The bones provide these rigid structural levers, and the skeletal muscles literally pull the strings using tendons to create movement. But hey, your skeleton isn't just there to help you walk around. Those bones act as heavy-duty armor for your vital organs. Think about your skull protecting your fragile brain. Plus, they actually serve as a crucial manufacturing center. Deep inside the bone marrow, your skeleton is busy producing both your red and white blood cells.
Moving on to Phase 2, integration and coordination, the bosses of the body.
So, we've built the physical framework and wrapped it in protective skin. Now, we need someone to actually run the operation. We've got 2 main command centers here acting as the bosses of the human body, and it's absolutely vital to understand how differently they operate. On one side, we have the nervous system. That's your brain, your spinal cord, your nerves. This is your high-speed instant communication network, and it runs purely on electrical impulses. If you touch a hot stove or suddenly need to sprint, the nervous system reacts in a fraction of a second. But on the other side, we have the endocrine system. This boss takes a much slower, more long-term approach. It uses chemical messengers, hormones, to regulate your body over minutes, hours, or even days.
The really crucial, mind-blowing point about the endocrine system is that its organs are physically disconnected from one another. Think about this roster for a second. Up in your brain, you have the hypothalamus and pituitary acting as the master control glands. Down in your neck, the thyroid is busy regulating your metabolism. In your abdomen, the pancreas balances your blood sugar with insulin, while your adrenal glands sit right there, ready to trigger your body's stress response. They don't physically touch at all, but they form this massively powerful communication network by dumping their chemical signals directly into our very next category.
Which brings us to Phase 3, transport systems, the internal highways. With our framework built and our boss systems in place, the body needs sprawling internal highways. We're talking about a massive logistics network that is constantly moving vital supplies in and draining cellular waste out. It's made up of 2 highly intertwined fluid systems. First is the cardiovascular system, pumping blood around the clock. Second is the lymphatic and immune system network. Working together, they make absolutely sure that every single tissue in your framework is perfectly nourished, balanced, and completely safe from microscopic pathogens.
Let's look at the absolute engine of the cardiovascular system, the heart. This tireless 4-chambered pump circulates your blood, blasting it out through arteries and pulling it back through veins. And by the way, blood itself is actually considered an organ. It's a fluid tissue. It's packed with red blood cells carrying your oxygen,
platelets ready to clot up any cuts, and white blood cells patrolling for infections. As this blood reaches your tissues, it squeezes into tiny, microscopic vessels called capillaries. That is where the magic happens. A vital exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place before the blood heads all the way back to the heart.
Now, running right alongside those blood vessels is the lymphatic system, and it serves a brilliant dual purpose. First, it acts as an essential drainage system. It pulls excess fluid out of your tissues so you don't just swell up like a balloon. Second, it routes all that fluid straight through your lymph nodes. You can think of lymph nodes as the body's elite security scanning centers. Inside, specialized white blood cells, like T cells and B cells, are actively scanning that fluid. They're searching for any trace of bacteria or viruses so they can immediately launch a targeted immune response.
Next up, Phase 4, Absorption and Excretion, Supply Chain and Waste Management.
Okay, so our internal highway is flowing smoothly, but it needs a constant supply of fresh resources, and obviously a way to dump the trash. To manage this intake and exhaust, we grouped together 3 incredibly hardworking systems: the respiratory system for gas exchange, the digestive system for pulling in nutrients, and the urinary system for removing liquid waste. Let's trace how these vital interactions with the outside world actually go down.
Starting with the respiratory system, let's just follow the dramatic path of a single breath of air. Air gets pulled right into the nasal cavity, travels down past the pharynx and larynx, drops through the rigid trachea, branches out into the bronchi, and finally lands in millions of microscopic sacs called alveoli. This is where oxygen slips directly into the bloodstream while carbon dioxide is pulled out to be exhaled. And what's really amazing here is that your lungs don't do this on their own. It's actually the muscular diaphragm sitting just below them that forcefully contracts to pull that air in.
Shifting gears from breathing air to processing fuel, we have digestion. The term digestion comes from Latin, and it literally means to break apart. That's the whole point. This system exists to take large, complex food from the outside world and completely break it down. It does this mechanically, like when you're chewing, and chemically, using powerful acids and enzymes. The goal? To get it so small that microscopic nutrients can actually be absorbed straight into our bloodstream.
Following that food's journey, it starts in the mouth, drops down the esophagus, and hits the stomach where it's churned in a literal vat of acid. But here is the critical takeaway. The vast majority of your actual nutrient absorption doesn't happen in the stomach. It happens next, in the incredibly long, winding small intestine. And accessory organs totally pitch in to help here. The liver delivers fat-dissolving bile, and the pancreas pumps in specialized digestive enzymes. Finally, whatever's left over moves into the large intestine, where any remaining water and electrolytes are absorbed before the solid waste is eliminated.
So, we just covered solid waste, but what about liquid waste? I want you to think about this for a second. Where does your urine actually come from? If you ask most people on the street, they'd probably just guess it comes directly from the water they drink, right? But the biological truth is so much more fascinating than that.
Your urine is directly filtered from your bloodstream. Every single minute of every single day, the urinary system is routing your blood through the kidneys. Your kidneys are your body's master purifiers. They are constantly scrubbing the blood, filtering out metabolic waste, balancing your electrolytes, regulating your blood pressure, and ensuring perfect acid-base homeostasis. The fluid and waste they pull out of your blood, that becomes urine, which is just stored in the bladder until you get rid of it.
And finally, Phase 5, Reproduction, Creating the Future. All right, so we successfully built, coordinated, nourished, and cleaned our physical body. There's only one major biological imperative left, and that's ensuring the continuation of the human species. When we look at the male and female reproductive systems, we see 2 totally distinct but entirely complementary roles. The male system is primarily focused on producing millions of gametes, the sperm cells inside the testes, and effectively transporting them outside the body. The female system, on the other hand, is vastly more complex. It not only produces egg cells through the intricate ovulation cycle in the ovaries, but it also houses the uterus. This is an organ completely specialized to nurture, protect, and develop a growing fetus for 9 whole months.
And there we have it. By zooming out, we've taken what is normally a completely chaotic, overwhelming list of 11 isolated anatomical systems, and we've mapped them beautifully into these 5 master categories. Mastering anatomy and physiology isn't about brute force memorization. It really isn't. It's about understanding how these functional groups rely on one another to keep the incredible machine of the human body alive and thriving.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on today. As you sit here right now, your nerves are firing, your blood is circulating, your kidneys are quietly filtering, and your muscles are holding your posture. Take a moment and ask yourself, which of your 11 systems is working the absolute hardest for you right at this very second? It's a literal biological symphony happening nonstop entirely within you. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning about the amazing machinery you live inside.